Natlan is the newest, most controversial region added to Genshin Impact since it launched 4 years ago. The region has received a wide variety of complaints, and so I wanted to talk about 3 of them: technology, character design, and racism. Let's start with technology since it's far less weighted. Natlan has introduced some new pieces of technology to the world of Teyvat: DJ sets, roller skates, motorcycles, a living being made out of pixels, a giant floating revolver, and more. These new additions have upset a decent chunk of the player base, but why is that? Well, the main reason is that some players feel these additions break the world and their immersion. Genshin Impact for most of its life remained in a pseudo-high fantasy medieval world. At least on the surface, the additions of such blatant modern technology to some players breaks the existing lore and world building previously established. The big question is this: does Malvika's dope bike destroy the world? Yes and no. Although Genshin does have a core high fantasy aesthetic, modern or otherwise advanced technology has always existed. These completely autonomous giant robots have been in the game since day one, and they aren't the only ones. A wide variety of different robots capable of shooting rockets and lasers, creating energy fields, turning into different shapes, and other wonderful capabilities have been added to the game throughout the past 4 years. Something that got added very early into the game was the camera, spelled with a K. Hold on to your butts cause I'm about to blow your mind. The camera lets you take pictures. The Fatui Gunners have giant cannons, and the Fatui Marksman has a rifle. Sumeru introduced what is essentially Wi-Fi. Fontaine has even more robots, as well as some mundane things like steamboats and elevators. Although Genshin on a surface level presents itself as a high fantasy medieval game, the truth is there's always been relatively modern, if not futuristic technology. So why exactly are people upset because of a bike? Well, it's because of 3 very important details: context, world building, and implementation. Although all of the various brown robots can be found all over the world, they all originate from an ancient, super advanced kingdom called Conria. Conria had a wide variety of advanced and powerful technology, to the point that the true gods of the world felt threatened and destroyed the kingdom. Because of this, remnants of their technology can be found all over the world. Fontaine, like I said, also has robots and other pieces of advanced technology like boats, elevators, guns, cannons, an underwater prison, and more. The explanation for this is that Fontaine has a special energy source called Osea, or something like that. I'm actually not sure how you pronounce it, I forgot. Which fuels all of the various technological advances that they have. Fontaine is also the most advanced kingdom currently in the world, which is why they have a steampunk renaissance aesthetic, in order to convey how further ahead they are from a technological aspect to the rest of the world. Sumeru essentially has Wi-Fi. A group of super smart scholars created these little devices called Akasha terminals that connect to a central hub of information. They did this by using the power of the God of Wisdom and the Dendronosis. Players don't have any problems with these various pieces of technology because the developers took the necessary time to properly explain and implement them into the world of Genshin Impact. Everything has a proper explanation, so world-breaking, inconsistent lore, and other such things never became a problem. But what about Natlan? Like I mentioned, it has DJ sets, roller skates, pixel monsters, a giant floating gun, and a motorcycle. The problem here is that there is no explanation for where any of these things came from. Natlan has a strong tribal culture, and if you walk around and look at the region, you won't see modern technologies. The most advanced thing we've seen so far as of me making this video in version 5.2 was a hot air balloon. Oddly, these pieces of technology are locked behind character skills and ultimates. Zelonin only uses her DJ set in her ultimate and her character trailer. Same goes for Malvika's bike, Chaska's giant flying gun, and everything else. Seemingly, these people are the only ones with access to this tech. So again, I ask, where did the motorcycle come from? What's odd is that there could have been a very simple answer. In version 5.1, we learned that Natlan used to be home to dragons countless years ago, and they had super advanced powerful technology. Remnants of that technology still exist in Natlan, and that could have been the origin for the bike and other things. Instead, we learn that the people of Natlan have no idea what any of the dragon tech does or how to use it. Side note, I do have to acknowledge the fact that Malvika herself will release in version 5.3. It's possible she will explain where the bike came from in that version. However, it would be kind of weird and random to do that at this point, considering where we are in the story. So I don't honestly expect that to happen, but it could. I do have to acknowledge that. Natlan's big gimmick is the new movement mechanics. The world design is made to heavily encourage, if not mandate, the movement tech. Puzzles, basic exploration, little mini games to get treasure chests, quests, the whole shebang. Because of this, they did take some time to explain the fuel source, phlogiston, or something like that, I don't know. It's a weird name, which does empower all of the different movement tech, but sadly that doesn't answer the core question that some fans have. Where did the goddamn bike come from? Personally, I don't think the tech itself is a big deal. For example, if the motorcycle came from Fontaine, I don't think anybody would care. Fontaine already has boats and elevators and robots and all of this other stuff, so a bike fits Fontaine, it makes sense. But Natlan, a region that is incredibly tribal and seemingly doesn't actually have that much advanced technology, like I said, the most advanced thing we've seen so far was a hot air balloon, a bike feels weird, it feels out of place. Same goes for the DJ set, giant flying gun, and the pixel monster living creature thing. The context for the bike is very, very important in this situation. Genshin Impact so far has done a really good job with its world building, so it's odd that they dropped the ball so much in Natlan in this aspect. There is a very big, strong disconnect between the tech that some playable characters have access to and the rest of Natlan. And that is the problem. Natlan having modern or super advanced tech is fine if it was explained properly, but because there is no explanation for where any of it came from, how it works, and its bad implementation, it caused a decent chunk of players to reject that aspect of the region. At the end of the day, lack of explanation, bad implementation, and the lack of proper context is the problem. But again, I do have to acknowledge, although I don't think it's going to happen, version 5.3 could explain where all of this technology came from. Okay, so next we're going to talk about character design and racism. These two topics go together for a very specific reason, and you'll see why as I talk about it. Now, of course, racism is a very weighted topic, and I am but one man. While I will try my best to remain respectful and accurate, I can very easily get details wrong, so feel free to correct me on anything that I talk about in the comments. Natlan is a very odd region. It seems to be based on a couple of different cultures, South America, Africa, and Oceania. Because these cultures are so different from each other, it causes a big problem where Natlan lacks a core, unified identity. The other regions of Genshin Impact don't suffer from this because they're mainly focused on one core culture. For example, Mondstadt is Germany, Fontaine is France, Liyue is China, Japan is Inazuma. Wait, reverse that. But for some reason, MiHoYo decided to combine three very different cultures into one central region, which is bizarre, and I don't know why they did that. I think it would be better if Natlan was just South America, or just Africa, or just Oceania, instead of being this weird fusion. It's genuinely really hard to tell which parts of Natlan are inspired by what. Specifically, I've been trying to figure out what was inspired by South America, and besides Chaska and I think Kinish, but I'm not 100% sure about him, I genuinely can't tell. The reason for that is that I myself am Hispanic, Salvadorian specifically. A lot of Genshin Impact players are very upset because they think the representation of Natlan is not only bad, but blatantly racist. And I do agree with the representation of Natlan being bad in some ways, but I don't think it's racist. Chaska is a character that received immense backlash. Her design seems to be mainly based on cowboys or vaqueros in Spanish, as well as general Andine/Peruvian culture. A lot of players have made the claim that her design is racist because cowboys have an association with colonization. Is this true? Technically, yes, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. The origin of cowboys is a little complicated, but essentially it originates from when Spain brought livestock to Mexico: horses, sheep, pigs, those sorts of animals. The natives of the land at the time, in order to manage their livestock, became what are essentially cowboys, a working class through a combination of the cultures of Spain and the natives. Chaska's design specifically has a lot of strong Andean influence. She has a lot of minor details that are in reference to Andenes/Peru. For example, feathers are often used as decoration or for ceremonial use. Her design actually has some pretty good representation in its detail, to the point where if you ask a Peruvian if they think her design is racist, they will most likely say no. Whether or not they think her design is good is a different question entirely. It's pretty clear to me that the people who say that Chaska's design is racist didn't do a lot of research into the topic. Most likely they just saw the small connection to colonization and decided Mejollo was racist. Vaqueros are still a very strong part of modern day Peru, so Chaska being based on one makes a lot of sense. That being said, I don't like her design. While yes, it has some good connection to Peru, she looks really dumb. I'm sorry, she just does. Why does she only have one pant leg? Why is she wearing what I can only describe as a corset? Why does she have elf ears? Like seriously, why does she have elf ears? I can't figure it out. If there's some kind of connection to Peru and elf ears, please tell me, because I genuinely do not understand why she has elf ears. The real problem with her, as far as I'm concerned, isn't that she's racist, but rather that she just looks stupid. Another problem that people have in Natlan is the lack of dark-skinned people. Like I mentioned earlier, Natlan is based on South America, Africa, and Oceania. Last I checked, a lot of dark-skinned people lived in these regions, but I'm still doing research, so I could be wrong. I don't know. Taking that into consideration, it would make sense for Natlan to have dark-skinned characters. And it does. While exploring and completing the main story quest, I ran into a decent amount of tan, or brown skin, and pale characters. And this is very realistic for South America. If you've seen my previous videos, more specifically my outro, you would know I am pale, and this is completely normal for Latinos. A lot of us are naturally pale, so Natlan having brown and pale characters is good representation. But Natlan isn't just South America, is it? To the best of my knowledge, there are no black people in Natlan. I couldn't find anybody anyways. Is that necessarily a problem? I don't know. Like I said, Natlan is weird. It's a fusion of a couple of wildly different cultures. If we focus on the Hispanic influence, the skin color representation is pretty good. But if we take the African influence into consideration, then the lack of clearly black people is a problem. Or is it? While yes, Natlan does have African influence, I don't think the people themselves are supposed to be African. Honestly, same goes for Latinos. Chaska might be influenced by Peru, but she herself is not Peruvian. She's an elf. For some reason. You have to remember that Genshin Impact does not take place in the real world. It takes place in the fictional world of Teyvat. These regions simply take influence from real world cultures. As such, they do not need to be perfect one-to-one recreations of the real world. Orowan's design seems to take inspiration from Yoruba culture, but is he himself Nigerian? No. Is that a problem? Well, I myself am not African, but in the same way I don't think Chaska is a problem, I don't think Orowan is a problem either. And yes, I agree that he does have a bad design. Why is he wearing skinny jeans? Like literally, what the hell? But that's besides the point. I think what a lot of the outraged players fail to realize is that what Genshin Impact is doing is by no means unique. There are countless pieces of media that take influence from real world cultures, but are not perfect representations of those cultures. For example, Avatar: The Last Airbender is inspired by Asian cultures, but does it perfectly represent China or Japan, Inuit, or Tibetan monks? No, and that's fine. I truly believe people are holding Genshin to a ridiculous standard. Why does Genshin have to have perfect representation? It's clear to me that they take the necessary time to properly research a lot of the things in their game, and they don't blatantly disrespect these different cultures. They do a good job as far as I'm concerned. Genshin is not trying to perfectly represent the various different cultures in the 7 different regions, and that's fine. And yet the outrage is only applied to Natlan and Sumeru. Why? Well, we all know why. The lack of dark-skinned characters. That's it. Regardless of how good or bad the actual representation is, as long as these regions don't have a lot of dark-skinned characters, people will bend over backwards to paint MiHoYo in a negative image. And to be clear, this is not me trying to protect a multi-billion-dollar company. These incredibly rich people can burn in hell for all I care. This is me simply holding MiHoYo to the exact same standard I would hold any other studio or small group of indie developers. Personally, I don't want, nor do I need, some random Chinese studio to perfectly represent my culture. That idea is simply ridiculous. As long as they are not being blatantly hateful, they can do whatever they want. As far as I can tell, the African influence is mostly relegated to clothing and the general look of the tribes. Since some of the people are brown, the people themselves might be Hispanic, but I'm not sure about that. Mualani is inspired by Hawaii, Genshin is inspired by Yoruba mythology, so on and so forth. Natlan's representation is fine, good even. MiHoYo is more than welcome to pick and choose what they are inspired by, and more importantly, how they implement it. Truth be told, while some people from these cultures are upset, I don't think most of the enraged players are actually from these cultures. I am convinced most of these players are a bunch of Americans who just googled some stuff and decided to be angry on others' behalf. Wouldn't be the first time, and it certainly won't be the last. I can't speak for everyone, obviously, but I, as a Hispanic man, don't think MiHoYo is doing anything wrong. Also, yes, I do live in America. What's happening to Natlan isn't even unique. Every region is like this. Mondstadt is not a perfect representation of Germany. Inazuma isn't exactly like Japan. I'm pretty sure Renaissance France didn't have robots all over the place. I truly do not understand why the non-light-skinned cultures need to be treated differently. We are not special or more deserving of proper representation than non-dark cultures in a Chinese gambling simulator. In my opinion, the only real problem with Genshin is the lack of melanin, and not because of racism, but because of bad character designs. Oh hey, it's Chaska again. I found this mod for her that changes her skin from white to brown, and she looks so much better. The colors of her clothes and the glowing tattoos look amazing when she has dark skin, as opposed to her actual light skin. Same goes for a character like Malvika, if not more so. Did you know that when she goes Super Saiyan at the end of the 5.1 story, she has glowing tattoos? I sure as hell didn't. I thought that because she had the glowing flaming hair, they didn't give her tattoos. But nope, she does have them, but because of how pale she is, you literally can barely see them. You know what would fix this? Dark skin to complement the glowing hair and tattoos. Granted, you would have to make some minor adjustments to the color of the clothing to make it properly work, but that's an easy fix. Also, I should probably adjust the biker thing. Yes, I think her being a biker is dumb. No, it's not racist. Malvika is the god of war, fire, and friendship. Her being a biker makes no sense with that context. She should look like a warrior, whether it be armor or some type of battle garb. She should be ready for battle, not a casual drive downtown. But this isn't the first time an Archon's design was bad. Why is Zhongli just a guy in a suit? Why is Venti just a bard? Why is Nahida just a little girl in a dress? Why is Raiden in a slutty kimono? None of these designs properly represent their culture or make sense for their role as gods. While yes, there is a connection to the culture of origin, none of them really do a great job of representing that culture considering they're supposed to be gods. For example, Furna. Why is she wearing a suit? Considering this is supposed to be Renaissance France, you'd think she'd be dressed like Marie Antoinette or something like that. She should have a big, flowing, elegant dress, not just be wearing a suit and a top hat. At the end of the day, in my opinion, no, MiHoYo is not racist. Just like any other piece of media, they take inspiration from other cultures and put their own spin on it to make it fit their world. They are not trying to be perfect one-to-one recreations of the real world. That being said, feel free to share your own thoughts in the comments. Honestly, all I ask is that they let me cook a pupusa that resurrects me from the dead, because Lord knows I love me a goddamn delicious pupusa. Did you know your average Salvadorian is made up of 90% pupusa? True story. Hey everyone, Vladimir here. Hope you enjoyed the video. I would really appreciate it if you guys left a like, dislike, comment, subscribe, or don't. It's up to you. And if you somehow aren't sick of my voice yet, then feel free to watch one of my other videos. Just press on one of the videos on the screen. Either way, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.